President Trump claims his border peace has reached a historic agreement which will disarm Hamas inside Gaza, a development welcomed by the Foreign Minister Ed Miliband. Now, the US President made the announcement in a post on Truth Social, saying the deal would shift control of Gaza to a new Palestinian Authority and withdraw Israeli troops from the region. This afternoon, an Israeli political source has told Sky News the IDF will only withdraw from the Yellow Line when Hamas undergoes a genuine disarmament. And I'm joined now by our defence and security analyst, Michael Clarke. Professor, is this a big move toward peace in Gaza?
Not really, Mari. I mean, we should be grateful that those words have been said, and Ed Miliband has welcomed them, as he should do. But none of us should be holding our breath on this. I mean, Hamas, under its new leadership, Khalil al-Hayya, who's only been leader now for a couple of weeks, who's stepped into the role. Before that, it was a sort of collective leadership to try and protect them from assassination. Now, al-Hayya won't last, I don't think he'll be alive that long, but he's obviously going to take his chances. He's lost all of his family anyway, and his brothers and his sons and his wife, so he's probably quite fatalistic about it. But it looks as if he has taken a decision to actually try and put Israel on the back foot. The mediators are always talking to Israel and Hamas. You've got to agree this, agree that. About 3 weeks ago now, Hamas agreed that they would step away from government if there was somebody to hand over to. And now they've agreed under conditions that they would begin the process of disarmament. But disarmament never actually works as such. I mean, weapons are never disarmed. They're just sort of put out of use. They're never actually destroyed. No group actually gives all of its weapons in, and it can always get more if it needs to. But they can be put beyond use. Mary, the most successful process of decommissioning in modern history was Northern Ireland after the Good Friday agreements. That really worked, and it took 12 years to get to a point where they could say, right, that process is now finished. And it had a lot going for it politically in terms of the two sides wanting to make a new deal. In this case, decommissioning or disarmament would have very little going for it, because both sides say, well, we'll only do it under conditions, and they both stress all the conditions that have got to be met.
Well, what are the conditions that are preventing both sides from agreeing this?
Well, there's quite a lot of them. I mean, one condition is that, as Hamas is saying, there's the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza. That exists, but it hasn't been able to do anything yet. And that's got to create some sort of arrangement whereby there can be an independent Palestinian technocratic government. That doesn't exist. And there's got then to be a peacekeeping organisation, a peacekeeping force has got to go into Gaza. That hasn't been created, and it's not clear it ever could be created. Then there's got to be economic reconstruction, and all of that's got to start. All of those things have got to happen together, big moving parts. And then the biggest moving part of all is that the Israelis have to begin to withdraw. Now, this is the Israeli line that they withdrew to under phase one of the ceasefire that was agreed last October, and they withdrew to that line. It was pretty clear they weren't going to go much further because that was a very well-fortified line at the time. But since then, the IDF have actually taken more of that. That line represented about 51% of Gaza. Since then, they've gone towards more like 60% of Gaza. They've moved that line inside that area. So all of this area on this side of the line is controlled by the IDF. This is their security zone. The Gazans can't live there. All the Gazans are pushed into the other 40%. So this line now has been moved towards a sort of 60%. And most recently, we've seen that the Israelis have started to construct berms, which is a sort of a mound, can be created by bulldozers. The military use them all the time. And the Israelis have constructed berms. So pre-15th of July, Sky's data and forensics have seen berms all the way along this line. And up to this week, they've seen another line of berms. Now, this is about 5 miles of fortified mounds of earth, which the Israelis have pushed forward in order to make themselves defensible back on their own line. There's about 14 miles of berms all the way along Gaza, and Gaza's only about 25, 26 miles long, so at least half of it is now covered in these makeshift defences which the Israelis are putting up. Netanyahu has said he will occupy 70% of Gaza, and of course his right-wingers say we've got to occupy the whole of Gaza. So far from an Israeli withdrawal, the Israelis are actually creating more territory, and this is what is an important point. On this side of the Israeli line, originally, this is Rafah. this is the place that really worries the Israelis, because Rafah is the city which the Hamas it was their main base, really. It was the base from which they were getting all their aid from Egypt, across, in the tunnels coming across from Egypt and the Sinai Peninsula. The Israelis are determined that they will control anything that happens in Rafah. Most evidence is that Rafah is a bit of a ghost town these days. Certainly the Gazans can't really go there. So the whole of the Gaza Strip is being squeezed, and 2.3 million people are now going to be squeezed into about a third, or 30% of the whole territory, and maybe even less than that. Before the crisis began, I checked on the figures that Gaza's density was the same density as central London before this crisis. So now it's probably about 3 times the density of central London as things exist. All of those conditions make it almost impossible to imagine, all those moving parts, that neither Israel nor Hamas will really make much progress over this idea of disarmament. But it's what they've said, so let's call their bluff and see if they will do it.